But more concerning, perhaps, is that Trump often thinks he's making sense when he's clearly not. Remember a few weeks ago when he was asked about the cost of childcare? Pretty simple question. His response, though, was a rambling word salad about tariffs, which literally had nothing to do with the topic at hand. And all this happens a lot. I mean, he was asked just on Tuesday how he would bring down the cost of groceries. Again, in a simple question. Trump went on an 8-minute non sequitur, swerving from energy prices to interest rates to farm subsidies to windmills to a border wall with Mexico. And even the excuses he makes about his rambling and incoherence are themselves rambling and incoherent.
But I do have to say, so I give these long, sometimes very complex sentences and paragraphs, but they all come together. I do it a lot. They say, it's terrible. So they say, so I'll give this long, complex area, for instance, that I talked about a lot of different territory.
Yeah, I have no idea what he was saying there either. I mean, the thing is, Trump is completely lacking in self-awareness because his enablers have always turned a blind eye to his failings. And that's been true ever since he was a kid. As Mary Trump points out in her new book, quote, Donald had none of the requisite skills to succeed on his own. But she writes, quote, his willingness to do anything to fit within his father's mold made him the recipient of tens of millions of dollars to maintain the illusion of brilliance that never existed. Joining me now for the first time on this show is Mary Trump, whose new book is titled Who Could Ever Love You? A Family Memoir. Mary, it's great to see you. Thank you for joining me. And this is it's a more personal book, or that's how I read it, than the first one you wrote in 2020. But you still share some disturbing insight into your uncle. I mean, one of the things that stuck out to me that I kind of just mentioned there was how you talk about how Donald Trump's father, your grandfather, indulged his delusions and essentially glossed over his very obvious failings. I mean, that sounds to me like what the Republican Party has been doing for more than 8 years now. Talk to me a little bit about this illusion of brilliance, a phrase, which is a great phrase, and what you mean by that.
First of all, Jen, it's so great to be with you. I really appreciate your having me on. And yeah, this book is different from the first one, which I consider a psychological history of a family. This one is very much a memoir. And there is some focus on Donald because he and I grew up, although in different generations, in the same family. And I had the great misfortune of sort of watching how all of that unfolded, how it affected my dad and therefore me. I think the fundamental problem was that my father, Fred Jr., was the oldest son and namesake who was expected to take over the family business. My grandfather, and I'm saying this term diagnostically, was a sociopath who saw other people as tools. And when he found my father wanting for various very complicated reasons, he turned to his next oldest son, Donald, who had no skills, no requisite skills to be an entrepreneur or to expand the business the way my grandfather intended. However, he did have a bunch of defense mechanisms that he had used to protect himself from his, quite frankly, bleak early years on the planet, that my grandfather found very useful. Donald's bullying, his grandiose sense of himself. And as we've seen, Donald and my grandfather, with the help of New York media and the banks and eventually the Republican Party, really did leverage those things to Donald's benefit, and I should say to the disadvantage of the rest of us.
It's so interesting how you describe it. I mean, this is what we're seeing today, as I mentioned, or that's how I see it. I mean, you've observed your uncle for more than 50 years, for better or worse, and I know it's been worse at many times. I was just talking about, and I'm not the only one who's observed this, I mean, he seems to be really struggling lately to answer straightforward questions about the cost of childcare, housing, groceries. His answers don't really make sense. I mean, is that just par for the course for decades, or have you noticed a change in his ability to articulate?
Yeah, well, first of all, as a human being, Donald is as bad as he's always been. This is somebody who's never evolved. This is somebody who seems worse behaviorally simply because he's being given more opportunities to be worse. But in terms of his functioning on a cognitive level, absolutely there's been deterioration. I mean, Donald is somebody who has had severe psychiatric disorders for decades that have remained untreated in any illness you have that you don't treat will worsen. And I think he's being pushed further and further because of Vice President Harris's success, because of his own failures, into a world that is more delusional. When he talks about how enthusiastic the crowd at the debate was, he's probably talking about himself. He was his audience for that debate in many, many ways. So I hope that more media outlets allow us to hear what Donald's actually saying instead of taking it upon themselves to, quote unquote, translate him. His nonsense is untranslatable. So what ends up happening, because human beings need to make meaning of things, is that certain reporters and journalists end up imbuing Donald's meaningless statements with meaning, so they don't seem as dangerous and, quite frankly, unhinged as they really are.
It's the sane washing of all of it, which is so interesting. The audience of him is I didn't think of it that way, but makes a lot of sense. I wanted to play for you to this point. I mean, he seemed surprised, this week, Trump, that a woman could be doing better than him on the stage, better than a man. So I want to play something he had to say and get your thoughts on it. There are a few people who know how to know what he's thinking than you. So let's play that.
They put her in, and she somehow, a woman, somehow she's doing better than he did.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine it can last.
Somehow a woman. I mean, this is kind of one of those things where he's refusing to do this debate so far. The next one, he seems surprised she wiped the floor with him at the debate. Is it a gender thing? What is that about?
Well, we are a family of misogynists. Even many of the women in my family were misogynists. So it is not at all surprising how clearly his contempt for women comes through, specifically when he's speaking about Vice President Harris. We've also seen how he speaks about women in general, the overturning of Roe v. Wade. But part of this, too, is just Donald once again failing the cognitive test. He just cannot exist in a world where he isn't always the winner. Recognizing himself as a loser is almost impossible. Being a loser was absolutely the worst thing you could be in my family. I mean, it was lethal to be a loser in my family. So he's still suffering from the narcissistic injury Vice President Harris inflicted on him at the first debate, which will be the only debate because Donald will never, ever allow himself to be in that kind of vulnerable position again.